Good morning. It's Tuesday, January 6, 2015. This is Tech Talk Today, episode 112. My name is Chris.
Wait, did you say 15?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't paying attention, but okay. I'm Angela.
Hi, Ange. So today is our big CES kickoff episode, and I just wanted to start really quickly with just a brief. CES is the Consumer Electronics Show. It's going on in Las Vegas. It's running from January 6th through the 9th. It actually kind of kicked off yesterday with their big press event. And so we've collected a lot of things from CES, and here's kind of my general approach to CES coverage. It's such a big event, and there's so much coming out of it all the time. And there's outfits like The Verge. You know, they're currently there right now live at the Ford CES keynote right now as we do this show. And they're out Engadget and I could go, you guys know all the great sites that cover this stuff. They're doing the really nitty-gritty stuff. So my take for CES for this week, for Tech Talk Today, is I kind of figure on a good CES year, 30% of what you see at CES will ever even ship. Maybe more like 20%. And 10% of that stuff is probably all the good stuff that you really even want. And I think even a smaller percentage of that is stuff that's going to be applicable to the Jupiter Broadcasting audience. So today, I've taken all of that. I've weighted it, Ange. I put a big spreadsheet together in Google Docs with some macros.
I'm so sure.
And weighted tables. And I created a formula to determine what I think the Jupiter Broadcasting audience will care the most about from CES this year. Now, it is going to be somewhat our first story US-centric, but not all of them, so don't worry. So Mumble Room, I'm going to bring you in. Time-appropriate greetings, Mumble Room, and are you ready to kick off our CES coverage?
Yes, time-appropriate greeting.
Hello. So, all right, I apologize to those of you who do not live in the U.S. This first story is very U.S.-centric, but it's kind of a big deal for us here, and then we'll move on to other non-U.S.-centric stuff. Dish is announcing something called Sling TV. It's going to allow you to watch cable television channels over the web for $20 a month. Channels will include, like the big one is ESPN, but also Food Network, CNN, the Travel Channel, Disney Family, things like that.
I wonder if that's going to interfere with Sling box.
They own Sling.
The
Dish.
Sling box?
Well, the EchoStar owns Sling, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's
sweet.
I know that's
I was going to say, that's
a clever use of the brand, as you might say. Or maybe a little confusing, depending. Now, here's the downside to Sling TV. You won't have your local television and no NBC.
Wait, why wouldn't you have local television?
This is TV over the internet. This is for cord cutters that don't have cable television. For $20 a month, you can get Sling TV web service and watch television channels without having cable TV.
Okay,
but you don't get NBC or local though.
Right. Well, they're basically saying we're not going to worry about where you're at. We're just going to give you programming.
Yeah. And they've made direct deals with ESPN and because ESPN's like the big one. So it's interesting. It's kind of limited in a sense. I'm kind of interested in it because we don't have TV service now. Mm-hmm. Maybe it might be kind of interesting. Anybody in the Mumble Room find this appealing? No. Wow.
I would probably get it.
Why would you probably get it?
Only because one of my roommates is a sports fan, and I would need the live stuff to get him to not have cable.
Yeah, that is a big part of it, right? Of course, you won't get Sunday NFL games unless you buy an antenna. I don't know.
Right.
I think it's interesting. I don't think it's the full solution yet, but I like it quite a bit, and I wouldn't be surprised if it sees some legal challenges too. But Dish is sort of already queued up to do this, so I think this is going to be one that ships. Here's one that we told you would see later on in the year, way back. And it's these new super aggressively priced Windows PCs that are trying to compete with Chromeboxes and Chromebooks. And this is HP. It's called a Stream Mini PC. It's $180. $180. HP is showing this sucker off on the CES floor. It's essentially a NUC-sized micro PC with a Celeron 2957U processor, 2 gigabytes of RAM, 32 gigabyte micro little tiny SSD. You also get 200 gigabytes of OneDrive storage, and of course you get a $25 gift certificate to the Windows Store when you pick this bad boy up. It also has gigabit Ethernet, 4 USB 3.0 ports. It's got 802.11n built into it, Bluetooth 4.0. And an SD card reader, so you could expand that storage. Audio jack, but only one. It's like one of those combo units, so you don't have in and out separately. Output for DisplayPort 1.2 and HDMI 1.4. And to hook you up with all of your internet surfing, it comes with Windows 8.1 with Bing.
Puke. So this is meant to be like a desktop replacement?
Yeah. Have you seen Chrome boxes?
No.
They're like the little laptops, but in a tiny computer. This is the same thing. It's about the size of the NUC you're using right now.
I don't know where that is.
It's right there. It's about that size, maybe a little bit smaller even. You can see it here on the screen too.
Yeah.
It's a nice looking little unit. It's a Celeron processor, so it's not going to be very fast, but maybe if you don't need a lot of demanding tasks, it's enough.
How does it compare to a Mac Mini?
It's way cheaper.
Well, okay.
It's definitely less, because the Mac Mini I think has like an i5 and I think like a i3 and i5 processor, so it's a much faster processor in the Mini, and this is using a slower type of SSD storage. So the Mini is way faster, but it's also like this is $180, and the Mini is like you get out of a Mini for decent Minis it's $700.
Wow. Yeah.
Are there any limitations on what Windows 8.1 with Bing apparently we're calling it?
That is a great question. I'm not totally clear. I have not really read up on the different new flavors of Windows 8.1 that have cropped up, but I would imagine, of course. But here's the bigger question: how easy is it to get rid of? Like, because if you could get this, see, this is what I was thinking, and this is what I said earlier in the year when we covered this. If you could get that and throw like an Ubuntu Mate desktop on there,
yeah.
that would be a great $180. That would be an amazing $180 computer then. But
I'd rather just buy one with it pre-installed. That would be much nicer.
Well, sure, but yeah.
Pink Penguin. This is going to be absolutely terrible because they're going to have to decrease the hardware to. Well, I know they get the manufacturers have to can pay less, but they're still going to have to try and compensate the cost of the Windows licenses.
Yeah.
I think Microsoft is subsidizing the cost of the hardware. Because remember, we found out that Google's been subsidizing the cost of the Chromebook hardware. Like there's been like a definite line. And Intel also is subsidizing some of the cost. That's why the Chromebooks are so cheap. And it's probably just a similar arrangement with this. So and if that's true, then it's in their best interest not to allow you to remove Windows, because then all of those subsidies have gone for nothing.
Right, and that whole 25 quid Windows Store voucher is just to get your credit card into the store.
Yeah, it is.
Well, and not only that, they'll still reap the benefit of the tax write-off, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay, but you know what? So
you're
going to see a few other manufacturers come out with these too. I think HP is just one of the first to be showing it off. I don't know. I think I could see businesses kind of getting into this. I think it's maybe a little more practical than the Chrome box for business.
I don't think it looks particularly business-like. I mean, it looks more home-like.
Well,
funky colors and shape.
Did you see they also have like a more like white and silver professional-looking one too? That's more.
Oh, that would be enough. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. Well, you never know.
I would just go with a NUC.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't understand why the NUC isn't like repackaged and sold by every OEM out there. It's a great little device that is just ready to go. And like it's already this, but it's actually, to be honest, it's a few $100s more. It's like $200 more, but it has an i3 or i5 processor in it. It has like actual PCI-based SSD storage, and it's just a way nicer device. So I don't understand why the NUC just sits around and nobody's developing something more interesting around it that people could just buy. They seem like the perfect frickin' Linux box for this kind of stuff. But anyways, I agree. Okay, I got something that is going to ship. I think it's going to ship, but it's probably only going to be for the rich people in the audience and the people who were probably around in their heydays in the 80s. Really? I'm serious. You ready for this one?
Yeah.
This is the new flag model Sony Walkman. That's right. It cost $1,200.
Oh, my God.
$1,200.
Wow.
It's called the ZX2.
Can you scroll down?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you bet I can scroll down. It's called the ZX2. It's designed exclusively with high-end audiophiles in mind. It's the fruit of continuous refinement in high audio quality and technologies. Everything around the device is meant for optimal audio experience.
Who
Spec-wise,
would buy this?
The Walkman supports DSD, WAV, AIF, FLAC, Apple lossless, and more lossless other codecs. It supports Bluetooth for wireless streaming with Sony's own like specialized magic in there to make it sound better, and NFC for one-touch pairing to speakers. All the high fidelity does come at a price. The Walkman comes in at a hefty $1,119.99.
Idiots.
One downside,
The one downside.
The one downside. Well,
Sounds
the
like
one
this is
downside.
at least the second downside so far.
It's shipping with Android 4.2, which debuted in November 2012. For those of you keeping track.
That's Jelly Bean.
Yeah, Jelly Bean. You can get some. You can get some Google Play apps up on this business, so you could get your Pandora,
Oh, thank
your
goodness.
Spotify. But it's
Wait,
definitely
does it come with a data package?
no. It's got Wi-Fi.
Oh, so yeah. Huh.
But it's definitely not. Gonna have a very fast processor, so you're not gonna be gaming on this.
Ain't
thing.
nobody got time for that.
Yeah.
What makes this so expensive? I can't, except for the MSC, but I can't think what it is.
I actually been trying to figure
good
it out.
point.
It is 128 gigabytes of SSD storage.
Okay.
You know what? Here, I'll play a little bit of The Verge's video. Let's take a look.
This is Ross Miller with The Verge, and this is Sony's brand new flagship Walkman, ZX2. This is not a multi-purpose device. This is very much, decidedly so, an audio-first, arguably an audio-only device. You can get Google apps. I mean, there's a browser, there's a Google Play Store, but this is running Android 4.2, and everything Sony has done with the device is decidedly meant for audio experience. There's every codec you can imagine, including lossless files, FLAC. This is supported. So how does it sound? Well, it's kind of hard to say on a CES show floor,
Yeah.
but so far what little we've listened to, it sounds really, really good. And also you can see here you've got quite a bit of customization options for your equalizer. You can really make it sound the way you want. Of course, it's got clear bass. Bass was a big thing Sony played up in the press conference. It has 128 gigs of internal memory, and it has a micro SD slot here, as you can see. Talking about the hardware for a second, as we saw earlier, it's got this iconic gold-tinted headphone jack. The whole device is really chunky. I mean, it's heavy, it's sturdy, I would say solid, and at least from my hand, the playback controls fit perfectly on my fingers. So it fits well, it feels great. The big determining factor on this, however, is the price. The Walkman ZX2, like the ZX1,
Yeah, so there you go. We know the rest.
This one is still over
Well, so
I'm not grokking what exactly is justifying the price.
you know their target audience should be like DJs or something.
Well, and I think it's clearly audiophiles. It must be the DAC. It must be the audio
Yeah.
gear inside. It must be the audio processing equipment. It has to
I
be.
completely agree, but I want that. I actually do.
You want it?
Well, I mean, I could see the logic. I could see the logic. How much would you be willing to spend, though?
Not 1200, but maybe.
What's the main reason?
I want a very good high fidelity portable player because a phone is not gonna be enough. It's not good enough on some good stereos or
Yeah.
any kind of that stuff. So
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Lionhead is an musician.
Yeah, I went through when I moved into the studio here and I built my new workstation, I got a really nice external audio unit, and I discovered then now you have to approve this part and this part. Like you can start to hear where the equipment just doesn't. There's something. So if your audio input is weak when you have an amazing system, it's like a total downer because you just don't get to take advantage of the whole thing. In a go-go, we had some feedback from your mic, so we have you muted right now, but we'll bring you back here in a little bit. Actually, if you want to drag them up to the staging area, Ange, maybe they can troubleshoot that when somebody gets in. So let's talk about something you're probably kind of familiar with in the video side, Chromecast. You remember Chromecast, right? This is it's gotten a lot of attention, but so one thing we don't talk a lot about is Google Cast. And I guess what I surmise is that Google Cast is kind of like the audio component of Chromecast. If you just took out the audio component. And at CES, yesterday technically, Google was demonstrating Google Cast for audio, which lets you play back sound from apps directly to speakers, sound bars, and AV receivers. Sony, LG, HEOS, and Denon will be the first to offer Google Cast-ready products this spring. So, Ange, picture it like this. You know, on your iPhone, you got your AirPlay where you can send... So this is same thing for audio, and it'll be built into the receiver. So you turn the receiver on, and it'll just be right there and available. No extra equipment needed.
Nice.
Yeah. So it'll be great for like Pandora and apps that just your music library on your phone
But
or
this is
streaming
a
that
physical.
podcast.
This is a physical product, though.
Yeah, it'll be new products. Like next time you go out and buy a receiver, this will be a feature on that receiver now.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. There's going to be some other devices they're working on too, like little gadgets and stuff like that. Here's one thing that I'm just not totally on board with the way Google does theirs compared to AirPlay. Google Cast uses essentially the cloud for streaming. So when you tap the Cast button on an Android device or an iOS device, or this is kind of nice, even on a web page, because since it's using the cloud, and you select your Google Cast supported device, the content goes from the cloud service directly to the endpoint, like the speaker or the receiver. It doesn't stream from your phone over the LAN. So this is good and bad, right? Because it makes it real easy, and you can send it from a web. But the thing I like about Apple's approach with AirPlay is I send a file from my iDevice over my Wi-Fi LAN directly peer-to-peer to the receiver device. There's no cloud service. There's no account involved. If my internet connection is out, it still works.
Right.
All of this, which happens from time to time for us.
Yes.
And so the Google side has an advantage of it's going to know about all your devices all the time. I could probably even send something here at the studio to a device at our house. Like, it's going to be kind of neat in that regard. But it has the downside of you have to go through this third-party service. They're going to know everything you stream. They're going to have a log of that. They're going to have to be able to have that content available. So if the app doesn't have a cloud component, you're out of luck. So things like Pandora are able to apply, but maybe things like Pocket Cast might not be able to apply. So I'm not sure if I'm totally excited about Google Cast, but as a podcast diehard fan, I'm always listening to podcasts. I desperately want something that when I get home, I can continue listening on my phone and just send that audio to something. And if I can, if it was a little speaker on my desk or like maybe VLC, I would be really happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have the same problem. I have a Chromecast, and being able to send stuff to the Chromecast and knowing that Google gets to see every link I send, it kind of annoys me, and that's why I quite like the idea of this Firefox Matchstick.
Yeah, and the Flint component,
others.
Right? Flint is sort of the same thing for Firefox Matchstick, when Flint could work with anything, and Flint's over the LAN, right?
Yeah. And the other problem is, exactly, it blocks you out of viewing your own local content unless you use something like Plex with Plex Server, which can cast to Google Cast, but you have to rely on their web service, which, again, if your connection goes down, you're hosed.
Yeah. And Google says later in 2015 you'll have even more devices. I don't mind it as a feature built in. I would much rather see something like Flint take off. The thing is, you can see the way Google has to work this, right, is with the hardware partners, and it's going to be really hard for things like Flint to compete with that. And then on the other side, you have Apple TV, which is just so locked into that ecosystem. I don't know exactly how Apple competes in all of that either with all this, but I'd be willing to give it a try. But I also I'm with Popey. I'm holding out for Flint. So there you go. That's some of the CES stuff. We'll be watching CES every single day. Ange, you could attest. I was up late last night watching keynote after keynote after keynote. Yep. So what you saw was just sort of some of the stuff that I pulled away from it, but I can't watch it all. I could really use your help. So if there's something great you see at CES, please submit it to the Tech Talk Today subreddit, techtalktoday.reddit.com. If there's something that's totally awesome Linux related, I'm also collecting those for Linux Action Show later in the week. CES is such a big event that there's like several threads you can follow at once, and one of them is the Linux track and what's some of the awesome Linux devices. If you catch one, feel free to drop it in the Linux Action Show subreddit. If you see a great gadget, something news related, please, techtalktoday.reddit.com. Help me out a little bit. Maybe we can crowdsource some of the CES coverage. Something else we're crowdsourcing, our funding of the network. Jupiter Broadcasting is getting funded by our audience over at patreon.com/today. Patreon.com/today. We have 425 of our audience members that are crowdfunding our new initiatives, give us some budget predictability, some runway, and probably the most important one, and the one that's maybe a little most uncomfortable to mention, is gives us flexibility and leverage when dealing with sponsors and having the option to frequently reject sponsor requests. And I think that is sort of key to how we are able to leverage multiple income sources to keep us going if anything bad were to ever happen or any big decisions ever need to be made. Also, as a patron over at patreon.com/today, you get access to some of the behind-the-scenes things. We posted a 2015, I guess, audio message, note, letter, audio card. Audio New Year's card to our patrons over at patreon.com/today. And if you're a patron of any level, you can go watch that. Or listen to that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And we also read notes. So there you go. That wraps us up for today's episode. Now, this Sunday on the Linux Action Show, Greg KH was on the show. We had a great chat with him, and he's a longtime kernel developer, and he's the maintainer of the stable branch right now. And when we started the interview, I asked Greg, I said, how did you get started in computers, Greg? What was sort of your entry point? And he said, well, my first computer was the TRS-80 Model 3. It's from 1983, and I dug up the commercial introducing this super hip computer. So here is the computer that helped one of the most critical developers in Linux get his start.
From Radio Shack, the TRS-80 Model 3. And at $200 off, it's a great value. Select from Radio Shack's huge program library to aid your children's education. Plan your personal and household budgets. Or to entertain with fast-action games. You can even learn to write programs. The TRS-80 Model 3, on sale for $7.99. Only at Radio Shack and Radio Shack Computer Centers, the computer experts.